Evil presses upon the brute only with its own intrinsic weight, whereas with us the fear of its coming often makes its burden 10 times more grievous. Schopenhauer points out that only humans are haunted by the specter of their own death. Ultimately, need and boredom are the two poles of human life, and suffering in human life is out of all proportion to its pleasures. He concludes that we should actually envy other animals, because the human life is characterized by misery where each of us pays the penalty of existence in his own peculiar way, but misfortune in general is the rule. He suggests that we humans should address one another as my fellow sufferer. Lest you are tempted to dismiss Schopenhauer as comically extreme, he reminds us that most ancient Indian and Greek mythologies put human misery at the center of their stories, as does the Christian doctrine that we come into the world with the burden of sin upon us, having to continually atone for this sin. I would add that the seeming serenity of Buddhism starts from the premise that life is interminable suffering, and that suicide appears to be a unique human affliction. While other animals can inflict harm on themselves and respond to trauma with self-neglect, they do not demonstrate an intent to kill themselves. As science writer Jesse Bering puts it in his book Suicidal, on no occasion has a distraught or ostracized ape ever been seen to climb to the highest branch it could find and jump. That's us. We're the ape that jumps. In fact, research indicates that at least 40% of us contemplate suicide at some point in our lives, and fully half of that group formulate plans to carry it out. It would appear that it takes the complexity of a human brain to have the sophistication to curtail its own existence. It's hard to sum up the human condition, but physician Russ Harris does a pretty good job. The psychological processes of a normal human mind are often destructive, and creates psychological suffering for us all, sooner or later. What's our problem? I like the way author Nassim Nicholas Taleb captures our predicament. Our minds are like inmates, captive to our biology, unless we manage a cunning escape. Remember these last 6 words because I'll come back to them. In fact, our minds have minds of their own. Of the many human paradoxes, this is the central one and the primary source of our unique struggle. We are captive to ourselves. Our well-being depends on a 3-pound electrical meat machine with a long, circuitous history of development that yielded some amazing features, but also some troublesome glitches. Not bugs, per se, since the flaws are embedded in the features themselves. The problem, at a high level, our brains are imperfect in substantive ways that are not obvious to us. The massively complex information processing apparatus that is the human brain is a jerry-rigged contraption that evolution built over an extended period by gradually adding new components to an original operating platform. This unimaginably long development process, which is still in progress, has culminated in a peculiar and somewhat sloppy fusion of an ancient, basic thinking system that operates subconsciously and a modern, special one that is largely conscious. Cognitive scientists typically refer to the older and newer systems as System 1 and System 2, respectively. Each system can be crudely associated with distinct brain areas, but there is significant anatomical overlap between them. And there are a couple of significant kinks in the overall design of this cognitive machinery, features that entail flaws in need of a fix. First, System 1 does most of the work, but its features were designed to facilitate survival in a different kind of world than the one we live in now. System 1 design flaws cause us to misperceive reality in significant ways. The Buddha insisted that human suffering is the result of an illusory view of reality, and that the elimination of suffering depends on a deep, meditative acknowledgement of the facts of existence. We can quibble about what these facts are, but his general insight is piercing. Human suffering is largely a function of misunderstanding how the world, including other people, actually works. Second, because System 1 functions largely below the level of our consciousness, Its design flaws are concealed from our day.